We have Miss Glendale, Lauren McBurnett.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Lauren. I've got your first question. So you're 22 years old and you're seeking your PhD. What is your hurry?
Well, I was actually seeking it since I was 18, so definitely in a hurry, but not really a hurry in the sense of just like racing through my education. I had a lot of opportunities given that my mom was a teacher, my dad's an engineer, and so academics were always really integrated into my family's core values. And so I had a lot of opportunities to advance my education. I had a background where I was actually homeschooled for a few years there, but really it goes back to my story where honestly I struggled in school as a kid. I am dyslexic, and so I struggle with reading and writing. And so having been homeschooled for a little while, I had the opportunity to really study the areas that I needed to and to go at my own pace. And that helped me really learn to love academics as well. And so then I started pursuing my bachelor's, which I got at 18, my master's at 20, and now I'm working on my PhD.
You indicated here, it says we need to find solutions for those who come here who will create positive contributions. How do we know at the beginning who's going to come here and who's going to do that? We don't know.
Isn't that the timeless question for us all? And if I had the answer to that question, I think I would be running for president and have a good shot. But as for right now, I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that we need to make a difference. We need to try something, because what we're doing isn't working in terms of immigration reform. And so we do need to pursue different opportunities, whether they work or not, because I come from a problem-solving engineer and research background. We have to give something a go because what we're doing doesn't work.
What can encourage women to get into science areas, engineering areas, those types of things more these days?
Yeah, it's something I feel really passionate about since I was a kid. And so encouraging girls is really no different than boys for me predominantly. I've done a lot of outreach in terms of STEM outreach. I've done over 1,000 hours in K-12 programs. And so one of the cool programs that I've been a part of that really helps to engage junior high and middle schoolers is the Mesa Day Clubs. And it's a national program that gives kids an opportunity in extracurricular, so it's outside of school, but it's usually helped by some of the teachers. They do lots of different grand challenges, engineering grand challenges. So one of those is power, obviously. We're looking at how are we going to give energy to our society. And so we do a solar car race. So we start out really small. We start with Legos. And then we build up with the kids. So I'll go out, I'll visit the schools when they're doing these club activities. We build with Legos, and after they've learned how the solar angle affects the panel and how that powers their car, we'll transition their cars to renewable materials like used water bottles or whatever they have laying around. Then we can go along and get them to being able to race the cars, which I've had the pleasure of leading the race 2 times in the past 3 years at the ASU campus. So there'll be 300 people around them, their friends, their family, because a lot of people get involved at this point, because how many of us have built a solar car before? I know I hadn't before this program. So it gets to be a lot of fun. You have a whole level of engagement from the community.
What's the last thing you failed at?
Let's see, the last thing I failed at. Well, my talent didn't go as well as I would have liked it to this morning, and so that would have been the most recent. But I don't think that we should emphasize failure the way our society does. And that's where failure is this big, overwhelming challenge that all of a sudden you're somehow less than. And that's something I feel passionate about telling kids, is that failure is an opportunity to improve. Like, if you aren't failing, if you aren't constantly growing, you never are going to be a better person than you are today. And so when I talk about failure, when I'm talking to little kids, and different kids of all ages, honestly, I go out to the schools and they'll tell me, isn't engineering hard? And I don't deny it. I'm like, yes, engineering is hard. I've gotten C's and D's before, and it's not always easy. Reading wasn't easy for me either. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. It means that you're going to have to try harder, and you're going to need more people to help you do it. And that's why I'm there.
So did your parents encourage you to do well in school, or were they more like what you're talking about, where they, said, just encouraged you in a different way where they said, you can do it? And were they very hard on you with grades?
My
Or were
parents
they
were really
strict?
encouraging and strict because I think you need a little bit of both. We don't all want to get out of bed in the morning and do everything, especially if you're homeschooled. You're like, should I get out of bed or not? No, I'm just kidding. I was really that kid that got up and made their bed. But for my parents, they really have always been encouraging and supportive in really helping me pursue the things I want to do. And that's how I'm here today. Like,
How long have you been involved in Miss Arizona program?
3-4 years. And I say 3-4 because this is my 3rd year competing at state, but I competed in a few locals. So I've lost more locals than I've won, and I've learned through each and every one of them.
Okay, so what have you missed out in life? Being an overachiever and being so driven. What have you missed?
I don't think I've really missed out. I would say, sure, there's different opportunities that I've passed up along the way. I haven't always gone to the movies with my friends, but I was going to the gym because I wanted to be here in front of you guys and be prepared for fitness and really prepared for this job because I do see the Miss Arizona role as a job. It's important that the girl that takes this position is mature and professional and that she's prepared for the job, not just the pageant.
If you were to win the crown, how open would you be to changing your appearance before nationals if the board asked you to?
Very open. In fact, I've had to change my appearance along the way. So I won the first local of the season back in October, the Miss Glendale, Miss North Phoenix title. And so I've been actually changing my appearance, changing my style, changing how I even write my essay and my platform statement, and really gone through a coaching process to be refined for talking to you guys today. And so I'm excited at the opportunities that would be bestowed on the new Miss Arizona to work with this state team, because it's not just competing for any state title holder. It's not just about wearing a crown. I want to work with the directors in this program.
Do you know who our 2 senators are in Congress?
Senator Jeff Flake, and I do have a funny story. I used to drive my dad's truck, and so it was a really old truck, and he actually, we put it up on the market to sell because it's kind of a gas guzzler. And so Jeff Flake actually called us up and tried to buy our truck from us at one point. So, funny story.
Okay, so let's say you're at a sponsor luncheon for the program this week, and you're sitting next to a sponsor and he puts his hand on your knee. How do you react?
I would take his hand off my knee immediately and probably look at him about like I'm looking right now, and with a firm and authoritative voice that that's not acceptable.
If you could get in a time machine and go to a different time and place, where would you go?
U.S. history has always interested me, as it interested my mom. And so when I was a kid, I got to go actually over to the East Coast and visit D.C. for the first time. And so if I were going back in time, I would go back to the U.S. Revolution, especially because our culture today, it's a scary world, and we're at a state like never before, at least in my day, my time, of so much dissension. And so I really would be fascinated to see how, like at the U.S., at the founding of our nation, how our forefathers were able to unify the population over issues of, creating a new nation.
How do you feel about fracking?
There's goods and bad parts of it, like every issue. So I obviously care about the environment, and Teddy Roosevelt, who created the national parks, is my hero, but I also see the benefit to fracking in the sense that it can help with, because there is different ways to be getting oil and power. So I see that as one of the ways, maybe not the best way, but not fracking has its cons too.
So which do you think is more important? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
Which is more important, do you think? Which side of it, that we should be doing it, or that it's too harmful? That it's, do the benefits outweigh?
And you do not have to answer that because the question portion is over. You have the last word. What would you like to tell us?
There's a lot of things I'd love to tell you about, but first I want to just say thank you so much for being here and giving myself and the other girls the opportunity to be here. I understand, like I said, this is a job, I'm prepared for that job. I've been preparing for this job for a long time. I'm mature and dedicated to the position. And I'm passionate about growing my platform on empowering others through science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because it's also supporting part of the national Miss America platform of building that brand. So I really see myself as potential of being the first engineer at Miss America, as a role to rebrand the organization like no other. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.